I would quote from what Benjamin Franklin said at the Constitutional Convention, which I think reflects best the founders' original understanding and intent here, which is at the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin said, "History provides one example only of a chief magistrate who was subject to public justice, criminal prosecution," and everybody cried out against that.
No, I understand, but since Benjamin Franklin, everybody has thought, including the presidents who've held the office, that they were taking this office subject to potential criminal prosecution, no?
I don't. I see the opposite. I see all the evidence going the other way.
Middle MAGA.
Isn't the same thing as the presidency at all. And also, yes, the president still has to abide by the law. There is still checks and balances on his power. He's not just allowed to do whatever he wants all the time forever.
Wait, no. There's a separation of powers, though. Nobody argues that while the president is an active president, he's not above the law. He's separate from the law. It's the most basic lesson of civics. He is the king of the executive branch. Remember what Donald Trump said, "I'm going to be a dictator on day one." That's what he meant. He meant that I'm going to do executive orders just like everybody's been doing, and that makes me a dictator within my branch. And that the president is king of not the United States. He is the king of the executive branch, period. There's no one that can override him. And the powers are separated. The judicial branch can't step in on the president. The Congress can't override and step on the president. The only process that you have is Congress impeaching the president, and even though it's just a figurative spot, the Chief Justice presides over the hearing if it makes it to the Senate. That's the only, so there is a process to check them. They're like, okay, you have an active president and you have the separation of powers. He was elected by the president. We don't want him above the law, but he must be separate from the law. So how do we do it? You could throw out, well, you could have the people vote again. That's just not feasible. I mean, I guess you could, but the proper way, and I agree with the founding fathers, is to have the Congress decide his fate. And if the people aren't happy with the impeachment, the checks and balances to Congress not impeaching the president for, not trimming their toenails would be voting them out. Beautiful system. So if he is separate from the law for anything he does active as president, then after he's president, for those same acts during that time frame, he doesn't lose the immunity. Why is this so hard? I'm amped up on this.
But there definitely always seemed to be in the court today this idea of like, what is the motivation behind it? And again, it was hard not to feel, especially with some of the more left-leaning justices, that it was as if they said no matter what Trump is doing, his motivations are always bad.
What concerns me is the precedence of this, because the amount of confidence they're going after these people and bending the law and prosecuting people the way they want to, and just we're sitting here like, well, they'll never do the other guy. They're confident they're never giving up power again.
Yeah.
That's where they are. They're like,
wait,
yeah, we'll set the precedent because it'll never be used against us.
Let me bring that back. What is he talking about? I didn't understand. Just hold on 1 second. Let me bring that back.
On his power, he's not just allowed to do whatever he wants all the time forever. But there definitely always seemed to be in the court today this idea of like, what is the motivation behind it? And again, it was hard not to feel, especially with some of the more left-leaning justices, that it was as if they said no matter what Trump is doing, his motivations are always bad.
What concerns me is the precedence of this, because the amount of confidence they're going after these people and bending the law and prosecuting people the way they want to, and just we're sitting here like, well, they'll never do the other guy. They're confident they're never giving up power again.
Yeah.
That's where they are. They're like, yeah, we'll set the precedent because it'll never be used against us.
I think you're
and so what he's saying is that it's not just selective persecution. I think he's almost intimating that Trump won't have a chance to win. And that's not true. What they're setting up is even if Trump wins, he can't do anything. That's what they're really setting up. But it's the same. I have the same sentiment as he is. Maybe he would agree with that.
You're exactly right. Well, I think it's a mixture. I think they're certainly hoping that they'll never have to give up power again. But part of why they're so afraid and part of why they're pulling out all the stops and really showing their hand here is because they know they actually have the opportunity for that to be the case, and it's going to require Trump not being reelected.
And what they're worried about is they're outnumbered by the people. If people on the left and right, populist people, real people, not the corporate left and right, if real people come together, they can't stop it. If real people come together and say, no, I don't trust this election, you're going to have to do this, this, and this, they can't do anything. And we're not that far away from that potentially happening. I mean, we're trending with the whole college campuses. I don't have the same ideology as those who are protesting, but we agree on the issue. That's different than 4 years ago. They were on college campuses protesting because of Black Iman, every day, a stressed out, drugged out, crackhead Black Iman resists arrest, and police have to turn him into Swiss cheese or put their knee on his back. Happens damn near all the time. And it's the fault of the person, at least at that moment. I know society and there's all kinds of other different things, but you have to take responsibility for that. And at that point, it's society's job to remove you from society. And I disagreed with them totally then. But now, 4 years later, they're going against Biden, not for Biden. 2020, they were all for Biden. They partied in the streets when Biden won. And the same type of people now are protesting against Biden. They're not booing Biden, but they're not showing up for Biden. And sometimes there are protesters doing it. But what my point is, we are kind of getting to that point where you're in Star Wars: A New Hope and the walls and the trash compactor are closing in. And at that point, the beef that you had Han Solo versus Princess Leia, Han Solo versus Luke Skywalker, tension over who's going to get the girl. That tension's not there at that moment. We got to survive. And that's where we're kind of getting towards. And the deep state's not going to maintain power if we keep going that way. That's why Fred Hampton got unlived. That's why Martin Luther King Jr. got unlived. That's why Malcolm X got unlived. These are people who, in some way, shape, or form, could form a rainbow coalition that was Fred Hampton of Mexicans, whites, blacks, everything. And he was like, things were overtly racist back then. And he was like, well, let's come to the table. Let's literally break bread. Why are we doing this? I don't care that you're racist. I'm racist too. That's basically what Fred Hampton said. We got a common foe. Let's talk about it. And after that, the FBI had to roll through. It was too dangerous. JFK had people, you don't even know what to call JFK now. JFK wasn't a Democrat. He wasn't a Republican. He was just a guy. And it didn't matter where you were. I mean, he was in with the mob and all that, but people from all sides like JFK. And that's why he could make a move on AIPAC as he was going to have them register as a foreign agency before he got eliminated. So they're worried about the people rising up. That's why they've got to do this kind of stuff and install it where, okay, if we can't rig it this time, allegedly, then we already have the system in place. The administrative state's solid. The administrative state are people that the president can't fire. They're there forever. They're actively against. If this is a president we don't like, they know the marching orders, the Time Cabal magazine. Everybody's against them. You know what to do. We don't even have to tell you. That's what's really happening.
Middle MAGA.